Shoulders.
Favorite.
Shoulders are just great to work with.
We're gonna do a whole shoulder workout this weekend.
Yeah. So welcome to Grounded in Motion. Today we have shoulders, the shoulder blueprint. We're going to go over posture really quickly because we can't skip this step. I wish we could, but we have to address it, address breathing, and then we're gonna get a little bit more into shoulder mechanics, how the shoulder moves, a little bit of a discussion of fascia, how it's all tethered in there so you can make the best or the most informed decision on how to take an approach to healing your shoulders and understanding how it works, you know. So I think to start off, which we get a little bored talking about, is the posture, you know. So before even getting into a shoulder rehabilitation routine, you want to address your overall posture, okay? Posture being not starting exercises, you know, right away. It's gonna fix your posture, but once again, tapping back into that proprioception and addressing your posture in your daily living activities. Holding your phone up a little bit better, being more mindful in sitting upright, and learning how to balance your head over your shoulders so you can start to take pressure off of the system. Because if you don't consciously do that first, you're going to still try to strengthen and rehabilitate your shoulder in that bad compressed state. So once again, you bring yourself into awareness, you start to address your posture in your daily living activities, and I think that's the path to starting a very rewarding shoulder recovery or shoulder rehabilitation. Because I think that's what's missing a lot sometimes in physical therapy.
Oh, 100%. I was actually going to bring that up.
What is that?
In insurance-based practices, if you get a script for your shoulder, they can only work on your shoulder. Like, that's how insurance works. They can't work on anything else. More often than not, the shoulder is not actually the problem, it's the rib cage position, but no one works on that. So you're trying to tackle a symptom and not getting to the root of the problem. And so in physical therapy clinics, like you were gonna say,
yeah,
they're like decreasing the pain and stuff, but being at a PT clinic, I can't tell you how many people come. I've been to PT for 8 weeks. I've done physical therapy so many times. And it's understanding that it's a whole body approach.
Yeah.
That you have to fix the rib cage because the shoulder blades ride and glide on that. And then, you know, it's this whole system, really. It's not just the shoulder. Now, acute injuries obviously are always a little different.
Yeah.
But we're talking long-term. I've had this problem. It won't go away. I've done these things. And so they're just putting a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, and then ultimately, let's say you have a shoulder surgery, right? But you were never told to address your posture and your body positioning. You're just gonna kind of end up back to where you were. And It sucks to have a surgery and then stay in a compressed state, not address these postural instabilities and these compressions, and then just re-injure your shoulders. So understand there's an underlying foundation to stack your shoulders on, which we're going to talk about today, which is the mechanics of the shoulders and the rib cage. So let's start with the rib cage. So rib cage connected to your T-spine 12 joints. It's a big section of your spine, and that rib cage, you want to decompress that with breathing, because it's going to start to expand and open up those ribs like an accordion kind of.
Yeah, 100%.
Understand? So that's what the breathing is going to do, is going to start to make space, is going to give you less tightness and compression in that mid-back. So you're getting a plus. Your mid-back pain is going to be much less intense, and you'll start to promote more of that positive, correct resting state of the scapulas, because the scapula is the next on the rib cage, and how it glides and how it functions on that rib cage, how it lives and exists on that rib cage. So
the rib cage side to side, but also front to back. And it elevates. So it's this huge lifting up and out. And when, from our previous podcast on sitting, when you're sitting, the thoracic spine is often what becomes tight and rigid, even though you feel the pain or the discomfort in the low back or the neck and the shoulders. It's often because of immobility and lack of movement of the thoracic spine. So that lack of movement forces movement either up or down.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important. And I know you see a lot of mobility with just like twists, but there's so much more to it. And that was highlighting before, and we talked about in previous podcasts, is that expansion to get it to move, not just rotate, because then you're just
grinding pretty much against tight joints.
Right. Exactly. Ugh. You want to be able to lift it up,
expand, elevate,
decompress, open up, and get the rib cage moving front to back. I think is probably one of the most fundamental things.
I think so too,
and
yes.
We have worked with.
I would say step one.
How many people have we worked with to combined that can't move their breath or the back of their body? It's like they breathe and it hits a wall. There's just no movement back there.
Yeah.
But they don't complain of like mid back pain or anything. It's always usually low back or shoulders and neck. Yeah. And then when we start working on their rib cage, how many people are like, right. So that's a huge thing.
So if you're feeling this, you're recovering from shoulder, you keep having recurring shoulder injuries,
chronic
and tendinitis and chronic tightness into the shoulders. Phase 1, you're breathing, make sure you're decompressing, make sure you're allowing that breath to make space in between the joints of the thoracic, of the T-spine, and into these little tiny spaces, intercostals. So that's going to help a lot.
And it's important to know that you have the intercostal muscles, you have the internal and external intercostal muscles. Those are stabilizing muscles. We think of them as breathing muscles. They're very little, just in between the ribs, but they are a huge part of stabilizing the body. So we want them to move and expand and do their job, but they're huge in that upper body stability.
Yeah, so the rib cage. Now that's in terms of decompression, okay? That's just decompression. Allowing space in there. But you have also the position of the rib cage, which can get crazy sometimes. Whether it's in an extension, that's way too much.
That's me, that's my patterning.
Or in a more forward press position. So you want to address a healthy rib cage position, which takes an interesting combination of mobility exercise. So now we're getting a little bit more into the mobilization of it, more into the movement aspect of it. So that's when you start to, maybe even before addressing shoulder bands or going into banded stuff, you want to stabilize and make sure the rib cage is in a proper position so you can actually have proper placement of your shoulders, and then you can work into your band routine. Because if it's not, once again, you're going to be strengthening and stabilizing in an improperly placed rib cage and shoulder. You understand?
Yes, and then that just... Right.
It's just you're not getting anywhere.
Right.
This is a process. Steps. You got to earn it. You breathe, you decompress it, you reposition it, and then the shoulders are resting on the body a little bit more comfortably. To rehab.
Absolutely.
You'll probably get range of motion and mobility already in the shoulder just by addressing those things without having even touched the shoulder much yet. Just because you're stacking, once that humerus goes into that ball and socket joint, you're going to be able, just by body positioning, you're going to be able to just move and glide a little bit better.
Right. Because if you can easily lose the core engagement of stabilizing if your rib cage is not in the right position. So your core is not working, then what's doing the work for you? Your low back.
Yeah, it just gets crazy.
So by anchoring and positioning and bracing the rib cage. Grab my coffee.
That's what I'm going for. I'm like, must drink more caffeine for this talk.
So, okay.
It's so fascinating that.
So without that proper rib cage positioning, your core isn't as engaged and your low back is overworking, as opposed to that brace stacked position. Now your core's deeply engaged and your low back isn't trying to compensate. And that's really important.
That is so important. So that placement, that decompression is already getting you on that path to, you know, your shoulder rehabilitation. And once again, not having relapse of pain. This is the goal also of this podcast, is for you guys not to continue to have these relapses of pain. You know, just get out of pain
injuries.
And know how to get out of it and know why it's happening, you know.
So I want you to remember too that the shoulder joint is a ball and socket like your hip, except your hip is deep, right? And you have the glutes and you have all these muscles around the pelvis that keep that deep socket. Your shoulder it's right here. There's no deep socket supporting it. It's very small muscles, joints right here. It's a very, I don't want to say delicate, but compared to the hip, it's much more shallow. And so,
absolutely, yeah.
Right, that's a huge reason why there's so many shoulder issues, or like it's so variable on that positioning, because it doesn't have that deep interlocking as much as the pelvis does. So it's much more, you know, it has much more range of motion, which just...
So yeah, having that, not addressing the thoracic biomechanics is gonna have you getting those compensation, or you're gonna be compensating like you said. Let's see.
Also, your carrying angle, which, Nanette, stand up.
Yes.
Is important for shoulder mechanics, just coming down the arm a little bit. Do you see if I told Nanette to keep her arm really straight, her shoulder pops forward, and when she is stacked in this bone straight, her arm comes out. This positioning of her hand on a barbell, on weights, in a yoga chaturanga or a down dog is going to play huge. And we don't often talk about it, but it plays into the position of being able to keep your collarbone wide and open. So where you place your hands is going to be slightly different for everyone because of these subtle variations. And it's not like we need to dive deep and like nitpick down, but there's just things to understand that arm variations are going to impact. So everyone has this very like,
different.
Do this, put your hands here kind of mentality, but we need to understand that we all have anatomical variations. So we want to teach people about that so they can find the right position for their body. And
Absolutely.
To reduce the risk of injuries. Yoga is huge for injuries in shoulder injuries in yoga. And then just lifting with barbells, the positioning of the hand is going to be different.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we'll put the details on that too, some imagery on there so you guys can see. So the scapula, before we even get into like shoulder stuff, before we get into more like the banded stuff or more of the stabilization stuff, next phase will be mobilizing, stretching into the neck. We skipped the head posture, but we'll get into that. We're trickling up.
We'll keep working up.
Yeah. You're going to be doing mobility stretches because yes, now we have to get into more fascia and releasing that fascia tissue and these lines that are pulling in different directions. So your mobilization phase will come in next, and working on that scapulothoracic area, which is not really a joint. It's categorized as a joint. There's 4 joints in the shoulder, 4 segments of joints in the shoulder, but it's the one that gives you the elevation, the depression, the protraction, the retraction. It's the one you want to promote all of these scapular movements also before you start grinding out some crazy stuff, because remember, the more it's gliding correctly on your rib cage, the better you can get into the strengthening piece of these muscles, because the scapula is stuck and stagnant and not gliding and moving. I don't know, I wouldn't even start to stabilize, because you're just going to tense things up much more.
And what's going to take that? The traps. The upper traps are going to take that position. How many people, my neck, my upper shoulders right here, it's because it's trying to hold you together.
That's where it says dysfunctions like snapping, grating, popping, sensation during shoulder movements. You understand?
Because that upper trap is like so
It's
pissed
terrible.
off.
So you want to make sure you start to mobilize that scapula area and get into some nice stretch mobility drills. And let's work our way into the head posture really quick, because this can also continue to make or break the shoulder dysfunction.
100%.
Simple, we're gonna keep it very simple. We're gonna be short with it because there's a lot of information out there on this. We already know that the degree that the head is forward is going to affect the upper body and the shoulders. So check in with that, you know. Let's give a quick tip. Quick break, quick tip. Let's do the foam tip because it's just so important. Even I struggle with that so much.
Well,
I feel
it's so
like
easy.
so
I mean, it's the
stupid,
path of least resistance. The body's always going to take the path of least resistance.
We were taught by our mentor this, so you know, still pass it on.
I teach Athena this, like she loves to play DJ, and she'll be like, "Where do we hold our phone?"
Children, young, our more aging population they are also on the phone a lot. It doesn't matter how much shoulder rehab you're going to try to do. You're going to be in physical therapy. You're going to try to see the best of the best of the best. But if you continue to be like this, no one can save you. You understand? So you want to try to bring the phone at least up to eye level. Nothing weird where it looks like you're taking pictures, but you can at least rest it right here with the elbows into the side, supporting you a little bit. So this is a big tip. I'm going to throw it in here today because just to save your shoulders, and you can continue on your path to that shoulder rehabilitation and injury prevention in the future. So stop this. This is very detrimental to us. It's gotten worse over time.
Oh, it's so bad. You can see when I teach at the college and the kids are just sitting and talking, their rib cage, like the front of their rib cage is like back here, and they're just this position.
I've seen some necks that look like rubber,
crazy.
like a giraffe's neck. Like it's very strange.
It's very crazy.
So check that. We got it out of the way really quickly, and just make sure you have that in mind, because that's a lot of pressure and weight that you're putting forward on the spine and on the shoulders and on everything. Please.
Yeah, you're compressing your nerves. And remember that when your nerves are compressed, they don't like slow down the information. The information's like a raging white water rapid. It's keeping your nervous system amped up. So when we decompress our rib cage, especially the head, because that's where all of the nerves are coming out of the spinal cord and your vagus nerve and all these things. If you have poor vagus and if you have poor head position and diaphragm recruitment, all of the vagus nerve work you're doing is not working. You have to, again, step back to the basics and put your head in the right position so the nerves are not compressed and have the space to send the signals accurately.
Now I will say with shoulders, because working with a lot of people who are coming out of injuries and trying to stay, you know, try not to go back into these injuries and have sometimes a fear of relapse of pain, I always remind them that the shoulders are just so much more fun to work with in a sense that, in my opinion, mechanically, there's nothing, once you correct and once you align and once you understand the concept and everything just plugs in, you really find freedom in it because you don't have anything stacked over it. You understand? Like the lower body, when working with the hips, it's much harder because we have a lot more weight over it. So there's a lot more imbalance recurring over and over again.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You understand? So once this gets freed up here and realigned and repositioned, you have nothing holding you down. However, when we are rehabbing hip, just more complicated stuff in the lower limbs, it's much harder. And I find it just relapsing from time to time. It's a lot more mechanical alignment that you have to work on to maintain the lower limbs, literally like the tires of the car. I explained the lower limbs, but the shoulders, once you address them, once all this is applied, the decompression, the rib cage repositioning, the scapular motion, stuff, the head posture just coming back over the body, you're gonna find relief. You're gonna stay pain-free. So there's a lot of hope to rehabbing your shoulder, and I'm very honest. The lower body, we got a lot of work to do. So
I love the upper body.
yeah, the upper body is so much more fun and less intense. Like, for example, that we do work with clients in tough situations, shoulders is much less intense than lower body, in my opinion. So stay positive. You definitely can get incredible shoulders and stay out of pain. So we're gonna get into more of the muscles, and you want to do fascia really quick? I mean, fascia is pretty simple. Let's go over fascia really quick.
Okay.
I mean,
you have a convergence of a bunch of lines of fascia coming up and in, and the lateral line, and everything's coming up and like I don't know what word I'm trying to think of, but merging.
Merging, yes.
Yes, and at the bottom of the rib cage, you have the
thoracolumbar,
which is fascia. A huge, like, if you put up a picture of the body and the back of the body, it would be red, 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 and then this huge triangle of white.
It is. You can look at it.
Yeah. So it's this huge thing.
It's the only fascia tissue that's demonstrated when they put anatomical visuals of just muscles.
Yes.
Like, it's like the muscles, and then you see like this white thing, you're like, what is that? That's your fascia.
That's your
thoracolumbar fascia.
And it's huge. And it's, if that's stuck in either position, an anterior or posterior position, it's gonna hold you into that position. Absolutely. So working in that is really big. And then going up those lines, you have that lateral, the spiral line, starts at the feet, goes all the way up the leg into the pelvis, and then comes into the stability again of that rib cage. So when you walk, it's what like keeps you upright.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then coming into the neck, there's, obviously all through here into the SCM, over the back of the head. But there's nothing as thick as the thoracolumbar. Yeah.
So
everything is more
think about
pliable.
We're helping you address the thoracic and the rib cage. So in while you're doing this, you're going to feel release also in the low back.
Yes.
You understand? So makes sense. You're going to get a lot of positives. We're not just thinking about one section. It's going to trickle down and give you many benefits.
Nothing moves in isolation.
Yes. So, and then fascia, they run into your fingertips, huh? So
you have two lines actually in the arms.
That's sometimes something that when there's a lot of shoulder dysfunction and upper body dysfunction, you will get tightness in the wrists, tightness in the hands, in the forearm, in that inner part of your arm. So the fascia is running into there, and it's all really connected. So.
And no one likes this, but if you take it back to the phone, and you're always in this position, right?
Yeah,
I see people running, holding their phone.
Oh my goodness.
So if I'm running, I don't know how long it takes. I'm not a runner, but if you're running for 30 minutes and your hand is in this position holding your phone.
I didn't even think about that. Like, it's just like mechanically weird. Like
it's mechanically weird, and it's going to go up into your shoulders. Like it can't not move up because you're running in this position holding this phone.
See how connected? It was so freaky. Like,
put something on it. Do not stop carrying your phone.
Yeah.
When you're walking, don't carry your phone. Put it in a bag, a pocket. They make arm bag. I don't know. There's so many tools. Stop carrying your phone, because this is what you're doing to your hand.
Yes, absolutely.
And your arms out, like think of those lines. So,
oh my God.
Fucking phones, man.
Yeah, the phones are a big one. It's going to make or break them. Biggest tip you're going to get today, that's the biggest takeaway today, is just bringing that phone back up and, more closer to the face and stuff like that. So yeah, that addresses fascia. It's all interconnected. So addressing this will help you a lot. So muscles, because we all love muscles, and people mostly just care about muscles, really. I don't care about any of this. But we have the deep stabilizers of the spine, and that connects into your T-spine, your rotators. And then you start to layer that up. I'm going to have the anatomical visuals for you guys to see. So, and then let's see, we got the big muscles. Infraspinatus, supraspinatus,
all
the
of
basics.
The rotator cuff muscles, and that's really all anyone's talking about.
Yeah, this is where it's easier. Right. Addressing the other stuff gets into the more complicated stuff. So the skip step is the other one. The
what?
The skip step is the correction of rib cage and the decompression of rib cage. So you have all these beautiful muscles from stabilizers. So you want to practice your stabilization routine. Back extensions are really good for those who are more in that forward flex position. Anterior core strengthening is much better for those who are in hyperextension. So understand, if the imbalance is in the front, you correct it. If it's in the back, you correct it to rebalance. So just note when working your muscles, okay? So it's not just about doing the rotator. You may need anterior core strengthening or anterior chain strengthening, or you may need posterior chain strengthening. So that in terms of stabilization, or pretty much deep stabilizers, because then we get into the more banded work and shoulder stabilization routine. So this is more spinal stabilization, which you need to address.
And I think it's really important when we talk about that head posture, the SCM.
Yes.
Is so important. It's like, think of it as the hip flexors of the upper body, right? They are keeping your head pulled back. And so often if your head is coming forward, these muscles are just turned off. They're not like doing their job. So when you pull your head back and up, not compressing and giving yourself a double chin, there's this elevation that's happening. You're working that SCM, which TMJ, shoulder pain, neck pain, chest pain, like it's a strappy muscle connecting from here and up, but it's a huge component.
So yeah, so when you're training, you're applying these postural
positions,
these alignment corrections too, because you can be strengthening your anterior core and the head placement is out. It's so complicated. It's so much more, takes details to really address things, okay? It is like being a mechanic. That's what we're doing. It's not just patching up your car, it's actually getting into the intricate work. What is it called? The body shops? The body shops patch up. Master mechanics can fix any car. Anything that has an engine, an 18-wheeler, jet ski, a bike, whatever, so it's more intricate, more complex stuff.
I have a client who I just started working with, and he's like, I've never felt these muscles before. And he's like a very active man, done all kinds of modalities of movement and, just really active.
That's why reach out to us. We will help you check your posture.
Yep.
I would love to start getting just messages of your form and posture questions.
Ask us questions.
So we can correct this and other people can see. There may be other people that may have postural imbalances or postural questions and alignment questions and exercises. So making sure that your head posture is correct and everything is correct as you're doing your stabilization, strengthening, or whatever it is you're doing is going to be important for your shoulder rehabilitation. So, and we got the big muscles, super big muscles. Lats,
the ones you're more used to hearing about. The rhomboids, the traps. Although, please strengthen your lower and mid traps and stop working on give your upper traps a break.
Absolutely.
And please work on those lower traps.
We're going to get back, we're going to come back and show you guys what you need to do.
Yes, we're
for the next episode. So we will be here to help you with this stuff.
Yeah. Because otherwise you're like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, so you guys will, of course, get the exercise, the workout, the tips and recommendations. So that's pretty much it. I don't really want to talk about strengthening too much because we'll leave that for the strengthening piece, but these are the important underlying factors of shoulder rehabilitation. And I left it in strengthening and addressing the anterior chain and the posterior chain because that's the next beginning phase before you get into your shoulder drills and your routines and you start doing weights and bands and rowing and all that stuff. Because like you said, you're just going to compensate if you haven't addressed these other underlying systems in the body. So
let's show them what happens when you adjust the rib cage.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can definitely show postural stuff.
So I have a nice rib flare, right? This is obviously over dramatic. But
we're not these flex. People. But this is a major, just like 4 or 5, this is a bad thing. There's not good either of them. Malia is much more than I am. I've drilled this hard. It's not easy. But so Malia's a little bit more in extension than I am. But we'll do the block because it's hard to get you fired up a little bit before.
Well, I think it's important to show.
Put it in between the thighs. So she chose a block. We're gonna put the video. I chose a block in between her thighs because it's gonna let her activate some inner thigh muscles. They're gonna let her connect a little bit more down here. She's, you know, we're all different, so she can benefit from that. Point your feet nice and straight.
Well, I think what's most important and what I want to show, not necessarily working, is if my rib cage is here and I anchor it down, look what happens to my upper body. My shoulders are forward and my head comes forward. Because in this position, the body is like, oh, I'm standing up. I've compensated. But once I go to brace that rib cage and anchor it down, everything comes forward. This is the actual position of what my shoulders and my head would look like. So from there, and what we're gonna show you in the next exercise is how to keep that anchor. What am I trying to say? Oh, the next podcast.
Yes,
when we strengthen the next podcast is exercises on how to do that. And this is why decompression is so important, because if I don't lift up and make that space to keep it there, I'm not going to be able to keep the positioning of everything. And so that's really important.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to show you what that was like, because I think hearing about it, okay, but if like, until, you know, a bunch of us are visual. So when I do this, everything comes forward.
Okay, so what happens when people don't address this anterior rib cage and they don't address their posture while they're doing their shoulder stuff, they're just going to just be a terrible.
This hurts already.
Yeah, it's just gonna be worse.
Pinchy.
It's just gonna get worse. So
or
the arm cannot go
like
here.
This.
Yeah, the arm cannot go here or here,
right,
or protraction or nothing unless this is like kind of addressed a little bit. And once again, that's why I said either the anterior chain strengthening or the posterior chain strengthening for those who are
otherwise
forward.
If I'm going not aware, if I don't know, I'm going to be like this working out.
Yeah, you're going to be in the extension.
And I'm just going to strengthen that extension and walk around even more like a desk because my butt's going to stick out.
Yes.
So that's visually like for the extension as opposed to.
So we can, I mean, if the forward flexion is different, it's
right,
still very limited range. Hyperextension will mimic like you have range of motion.
100%.
So you'll be like this, but it's not real.
And all that's happening back here in your low back pain, I'm just compressing. Everything is just compressing.
And for me, like if you lock it, like I can just tell I have a little bit of limited range of motion because I'm controlling my rib cage.
Right.
Right.
Oh, I love it so much.
You can just feel like, you can just really feel, and you can also feel how you want to cheat and be like, and fake your range of motion in physical therapy.
I watch it all day long.
I don't
not
fake
in
your
my
range of
physical
motion.
therapy
I got
clinic.
this.
Not so
your
much.
Your rib cage got this.
I watch it all day in the gym, not so much at my physical therapy clinic, but all day at the gym, watching people move and work out.
Yeah.
They're just faking their ranges of motion and they just don't know.
An extension. And then if more in that forward flex position, you're just not going to get anything. They can't cheat as much. They're just going to be stuck.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
So they're just stuck in there. But yeah, that's a very good visual. And that's what we mean by the importance of this rib cage positioning here and controlling this and being aware of this and having it trained. So when you do start, you know, doing the strengthening into the shoulders a little bit more. So let's see.
I think that's it. I just wanted that bit. Don't sit on that.
So yeah, and then you have your, the phases would be the bands. I love shoulder rehab. I have a client that's doing so good in the shoulder. His shoulders look so nice. I'm like, damn, I need your trainer. I need your trainer. But we did bands, you know, we get over it, we drop the weights. We just get over yourself. And drop the weights, do the bands. With the rib cage correction, super hard.
And head position.
Yeah, and head position.
Just holding the rib cage in the head position and getting the shoulders to move is enough.
Feel
for
your
most
muscles firing. Yeah, you're gonna feel your muscles like crazy firing. And then you can get into your strength training. Once again, highlighting, very important. A lot of people don't talk about this for shoulder. The triceps, I'm gonna bring it up there. It's a big strengthening piece, a big connection into the posterior of the shoulder.
Yes.
A lot of people, it's so hard to get. The triceps are a huge grind. big tip is strengthen your triceps, practice tricep.
That's a huge range of motion thing.
So important. It's so important, but it's totally skipped, and we always find to kind of do all these other drills and the shoulder stuff, but the tricep needs to be super strong for it to actually be really supportive into that awesome, you understand? So focus, don't forget about your triceps, and on top of that, it's going to be beneficial. They're hard to strengthen. No bingo arms, like I call them.
Bingo arms?
Bingo!
I never heard that. Bat wings, like that kind of stuff, but never.
Teacher arms.
Oh my God.
Chalkboard arms. And yes, so you can just tell also sometimes the weakness, like you'll be like, okay, the shoulders, yes, right, but these triceps are not, they're just non-existent. There's nothing they're kind of like the stabilizers of your back. Oh, it brings you kind of like this. That tricep, this
keeps the shoulders back.
Keep it back a little bit, nice, strong.
And a huge component, like we said, of range of motion.
Yeah, so
keeps you relaxed.
Big one that's totally overlooked, shoulders, bands, tricep kickbacks. Forget about your biceps. Biceps always tend to work. They work in everything.
Yeah, they're
just like on overdrive. So focus on that posterior, that back chain of the arm when you're doing your strengthening for the shoulders. Don't forget about that.
Next podcast, and it will be all on shoulder, rib cage, head position mechanics, and then like a program
stabilization and strength
to start.
So hell yeah, we're gonna lock that rib cage and do funky arm movements and challenge your rib cage and arm movements.
Favorite.
And then we're gonna get these bands, and then we're going to get into the strength training routine. So you guys stay tuned for the next episode. I think this covers shoulders. It is a nice little chunk of. It's not too complex. Like the lower body is just complicated. When we did the lower body, it was like a whole.
It's just a lot of information.
An hour.
That's new information.
Yeah.
I think, again, like you said, it's just these generic things, but it's so much deeper if you want to get rid of your chronic injuries. And that's really what's important to us, is that we teach you these fundamentals so that you can go out in the world and really do the things you love to do. Go play pickleball. Go lift heavy. Go lift heavy. Do the things. But to get rid of those chronic injuries, you have to pay your dues, like you said.
Yes.
You gotta earn it.
Unless we know, we understand, we don't know any better. So
I didn't know.
That's what makes you just being here, listening to the podcast and trying to absorb this information is your first step to making that change. So education is, and the knowledge is above all. No one can ever take that away from you. So
well, what I love is that you gather this knowledge, and then when you implement it, it becomes wisdom.
Exactly. So we hope you enjoyed. We'll have some visuals on there for you, of course.
Best.
And then
Nanette does all of the tech stuff for me because
I love it. I'm totally into this.
Yeah, and they're beautiful.
Yeah.
Everything is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yep, she puts in the work for this visual representation, and it's beautiful. So,
and don't forget to check out that episode we just recorded, the clothing statement for, which is sitting and
our favorite desk
chair recommendations, and it's good for those of you that sit all day, which this can also kind of shoulders, just in case you
absolutely. All right, my friends, share, subscribe. Questions, comments, let us know. We're on Instagram. Follow us there. Otherwise, be well.
Yeah, we'll see you for the next one. Whoop, whoop. We're heading out to, do our magic out there in the world. I'll see you guys. Bye.